Most drifters hit a dead car like they are late to a fire. Glove box, console, trunk, under the seat, a quick look, a quick curse. Then they move on. And that is why they stay poor in the dead world. Because a dead car is only empty if you still think the way the old world taught you to think. Back then, the value was obvious. Fuel, keys, movement, maybe whatever somebody left inside. Now the obvious value is usually gone first. The useful value stays behind. That is what we are talking about today. 5 things in every dead car that still matter. Not the flashy loot, not fantasy loot, not the things people always brag about pulling from some miracle survivor vehicle. The real stuff. The parts that still solve problems after the engine is finished. The tank is dry, the doors are warped, and the whole block has already been picked through by faster hands and dumber eyes. I move through a looted street lined with dead vehicles. Windows broken, tires collapsed, interiors torn open. Most drifters look at a block like this and see leftovers. I see unfinished value. Because a dead car is not failed transport anymore. It is salvage with shape. First thing that still matters, reflective parts. Most people hear that and think mirror. Even then, they think too small. A dead car gives you multiple ways to work with reflection. Side mirrors, rear view mirror if it is intact, broken reflective fragments in the right conditions, even polished trim in a pinch. Not because you want to admire yourself in the ruins, because reflection lets you steal information without giving your whole body away. That matters on bad ground. Need to check a blind angle before you lean past a wreck. Reflection matters. Need to read movement behind a broken corner, down an alley cut, or past a low barrier without exposing your head. Reflection matters. Need a small controlled signal across distance? Still matters. And here is what most drifters miss. Damaged reflective parts still count. You do not need perfection. You need enough surface to pull information out of danger. That is the drift fox test. Not, does it look clean? Does it still solve a problem? A dead block punishes direct curiosity. Reflection gives you indirect curiosity. Safer, quieter, smarter. Second thing that still matters, seatbelts, straps, and useful interior fabric. This is where the old world blinds people hard. They see belts and soft material and think junk upholstery. What I see is controlled strength already cut to human use. Seatbelts are built to resist force. That matters long after the car dies. Tie-downs, wraps, drag loops, sling points, lashings for scrap bundles, quiet gear control, temporary shelter retention, emergency stabilization if somebody is hurt and still moving. The point is not one perfect use. The point is versatility. A dead world punishes single-purpose thinking. And interior fabric matters too, if you know how to separate weak trash from useful material. Seat backing, small padding sections, durable cloth layers, insulation scraps. None of it replaces proper gear, but that is not the test. The test is always the same. Does it solve the next problem cheaper than searching for something better? If yes, it matters. Good scavengers stop asking whether a scrap item is ideal. They ask whether it is enough. A lot of survival is built on enough. Enough tension, enough retention, enough repair, enough friction between you and failure to buy one more hour. Seatbelt webbing buys hours. That makes it loot. Third thing that still matters, wiring, clips, connectors, and fuse hardware. Not because you are about to rebuild civilization in a parking lane. Because small salvage solves small real problems, and small problems are what bury people. Most dead cars still carry fragments of usable system logic even after the battery is gone or worthless. Wire lengths, connectors, clips, fuse bodies, terminal hardware, small fasteners attached to parts other people rip out badly. None of this looks impressive. That is exactly why it survives the first wave of looting. The smart read is simple. If a part helps you connect, secure, bridge, bind, patch, or salvage something else, it still matters. Wire is not just wire anymore. It becomes attachment logic, repair logic, retention logic, a way to hold shape where cloth fails and bulk hardware is too heavy or too loud. And the other advantage is density. A dead car gives you compact function. That matters when you are trying to carry smart instead of heavy. A careful drifter can pull multiple future fixes from one stripped panel, while the louder scavenger is still digging through the trunk for jackpot fantasies. That is the difference. One scavenger searches for prizes. The other scavenger builds options. I build options. Fourth thing that still matters: rods, brackets, springs, and shaped metal. This is where dead cars stop being containers and start being parts banks. A lot of scavengers understand metal in the dumbest possible way. Heavy equals useful, big equals valuable. If they cannot swing it, trade it, or brag about it, they ignore it. That is why they miss the good pieces. What you want are shaped solutions. Small rods, retention brackets, tension pieces, hinged bits, springs, flat metal with useful edges, narrow plates, mechanical fragments that already know how to hold force. Those are worth more than random weight. Because shaped metal solves structure problems fast. Hook something, brace something, wedge something, pin something, scrape something, reinforce a weak panel, fix a latch, quiet a loose build, keep a shelter piece from shifting under wind. The dead world is full of things that almost work. Shaped metal helps almost become enough. And enough is what keeps the scrap panel from dropping, the bad door from swinging open, or the weak shelter from turning noisy at the wrong hour. If you only loot for what looks obvious, you keep paying full price for simple problems. If you loot for shaped function, simple problems get cheaper. That is drift fox math. Fox rule. The best car loot is usually the part that no longer looks like loot. That is the whole lesson in one line. The obvious value gets stripped first, because obvious mines arrive first. Fuel cans, bags, dashboard junk, visible tools, trunk cargo, anything easy to brag about. After that, the vehicle starts looking dead. Good. That is when it becomes useful again. Because once a thing stops reading as loot, it starts surviving the attention of impatient people. And impatient people do most of the sorting for you. They rip open what they understand. They damage what they want. They ignore what takes thought. Then they leave. What remains is often lower profile, higher function salvage. I like that kind of value. Not because it is glamorous, because it is still there. A careful drifter can pull more real use out of a picked clean sedan than a loud scavenger can pull out of 3 fresher wrecks searched badly. That is the drift trick. Read past the corpse of the object. Look for what still solves. A dead car is not a car anymore. It is layered material with old world engineering still trapped inside it. Now here is where people ruin the whole thing. They stay too long. A dead car invites tunnel vision. You lean in, start pulling, start sorting, start thinking like the whole world shrank down to a door frame and a seat cavity. That is how blocks eat people. The sloppy drifter goes loud and fast, checks obvious compartments, curses when nothing good shows, tears paneling loose with no plan, lets metal snap, glass shift, doors bang, stays exposed at curbside too long, misses the mirror, ignores the belts, walks past the shaped hardware, takes none of the quiet use parts, leaves with trash and wasted time. Worst version? He does all of that on open sightline ground while assuming everybody else is too tired to notice. Bad assumption. I work the opposite way. Quick exterior read first. Sightlines, approach routes, noise risk, whether the car is worth opening at all. Then selective pull, not frantic digging. 1 or 2 problem-solving parts, then move. That is the payoff. Dead cars are only empty if you are still thinking like the old world. So next time you hit a dead block full of wrecks, stop asking the lazy question. Not, does this car still run? Wrong world. Ask better questions. What still reflects? What still binds? What still connects? What still braces? What still solves the next problem faster than walking away empty? That is how I view a dead car. Not as a machine that failed, as a shell still full of decisions. And in the dead world, decisions are loot. What dead object should I map next? Drop the next drift.